Who's Pulling Your Strings? How to Break the Cycle of Manipulation and Regain Control of Your Life. By Harriet Braiker, Ph.D. 1. Introduction. Throughout my career I have been interested in the psychological problems that men and women develop as a result of their good, but often misguided, intentions. In the mid-1980s, just as the full thrust of the women's movement was beginning to alter the American labor force and the fabric of American life, I wrote The Type E Woman: How to Overcome the Stress of Being Everything to Everybody. That book compared and contrasted the different types of stresses of men and women. Specifically, it examined the continuing stress cycles created by women's flawed attempts to have it all by trying to meet everyone else's needs at the expense of their own health and welfare. For nearly 20 years now, high-achieving women across the United States and, indeed, the world over have identified with the Type E concept. They have populated my clinical practice, retained me to consult in their businesses, invited me to give keynote speeches, and formed a receptive and gracious audience for my radio and television appearances. No matter how powerful or successful, Type E women talk to me about how their desire to make others happy sets them up to be victims in damaging manipulative relationships. I revisited the topic of people-pleasing, 21st century style, just a few years ago in another book called The Disease to Please: Curing the People-Pleasing Syndrome. Since publication of The Disease to Please in 2001, I have received a continuous stream of emails and messages on the website's guest book from both women and men who identify with the problem. The theme of these messages is consistent: people pleasers' nice intentions make them an easy mark for manipulators. And the victim status they adopt when manipulators wrest away their freedom, self-direction, and sense of personal control creates deeper and more damaging emotional problems. The message to me came loud and clear: my readers could really use a good self-help book that cuts through the fog of confusion that manipulation produces. They need to better understand why, how, when, and by whom they get manipulated. Most important, of course, they need to know what they can do to stop it. However, make no mistake, people pleasers are by no means the only ones vulnerable to manipulation. Nearly 30 years of practice as a clinical psychologist and management consultant have driven that point home to me. I have witnessed the painful, disruptive, and disabling effects of manipulation on patients and clients from varied backgrounds, with disparate personalities, of wide age ranges, and all levels of economic, educational, and social status. Some people are easier targets than others, but nobody is completely invulnerable to skilled manipulators. I have worked with patients and corporate clients who never felt the need to speak to a psychologist until they found themselves under someone's thumb, unable to extricate themselves from a manipulative spouse, a controlling boss, an ambitious subordinate, a backstabbing competitive coworker, a guilt-inducing mother, or an insecure friend. The list of manipulators goes on and on. My own experience with manipulative relationships extends well beyond a merely professional interest. I know firsthand the toll on self-esteem, happiness, and emotional and physical health that manipulation exacts. I have been entangled in the insidious web of coercive, manipulative control. I never want to go there again. In the interest of self-protection, as well as the welfare of those who seek my professional help, I have worked for many years to develop tactics and strategies to resist manipulation. I have written Who's Pulling Your Strings? In order to share those skills with a wide audience. My goal, simply, is to help readers break the shackles of manipulation and reclaim control over their own lives. There are a few important caveats about the audience for this book. Who's Pulling Your Strings? Is about emotional or psychological manipulation. It is not intended to apply to relationships in which physical violence, or the threat of physical violence, is used as a means of control. If you are the victim of a physically abusive relationship, you do not have the luxury to read this book. Not now. You need to take urgent steps to protect yourself and others by putting as much physical and psychological distance as possible between you and the person who has been abusing you. Neither is this book intended for people being manipulated by someone who abuses alcohol and/or drugs. Alcoholics, addicts, and substance abusers are quite literally not in their right minds by virtue of the intoxicants they ingest. You simply cannot deal effectively with an abuser until he or she gets the substance abuse problem under control. As long as substance abusers keep drinking or using, your problems with them will continue. Manipulation is a core symptom of their illness. You need to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Finally, this book is not intended for those being pressured or coerced into illegal activities. Whether it is a corrupt boss at work who wants you to cook the books, a boyfriend or girlfriend who intends to lie and defraud others and wants you to swear to it, or any other person who is pushing you to cross the line of criminal behavior, you need to get away from the relationship and away from the manipulator immediately. There is no room here for negotiation. Barring these exceptions, this book is for you. How do I know? I have yet to meet anyone who has not been manipulated by someone at some point in his or her life. So everyone can benefit from learning how to resist manipulation. If you are the victim or target of a manipulative relationship right now, take comfort in knowing that you are not alone. Millions of people share the feelings that manipulation produces, the impotent sense that there is nothing you can do to interrupt the toxic cycle or to limit the damage. This is just how a manipulator wants you to feel. My fervent hope is that this book will shed new light on your problem and change your feelings of helplessness, confusion, and loss of control. If we succeed together, you will have a great answer the next time someone asks you, "Who's pulling your strings?" You can look them dead in the eye and say, "Nobody but me."